Hello guys, welcome to Tally Masterclass. Today we'll be looking at how to record transactions in our case study 1. So in our previous sessions we discussed how to create a company, and we created Sika Emoja Limited company. Then we also created the ledgers. So today we are going to look at how to record these transactions in our system. So if you take 2nd January 2017, you can see that the transaction is given. Sika Emoja Limited commenced business with cash of what? 180,000 Ghana cedis. Now, we first of all have to identify the account involved in this transaction. We are starting operation, so capital and then cash. After identifying the account involved, you need to know which one you are debiting, which one you are crediting. So we are debiting cash and then we are crediting capital. Then lastly, you need to know which accounting voucher you're going to use in Tally to record. Because the company is receiving money, we will use FSIS. Okay, so basically that's what we'll be doing for each of these transactions, and then we'll record into the system. Guys, you need to watch out for another video that has been recorded on accounting vouchers. If you've not seen it, you can check the link below and then follow and see the various types of accounting vouchers and when to use them, so that you can really understand and then follow. Okay, so we'll go to our breakdown here, where we have actually splitted each transaction. We have identified the account involved and then the accounting voucher that will be used. So we are starting with the first transaction, which is right here. Okay, so we are debiting cash and then we are crediting capital. We are using accounting voucher FSIS to record. So let's go to Tally and see how we will record this transaction into the system. So now when you come to Tally, for the first time before you record the transaction, check your period, the current period right here. Click on it and be sure that this period is in line with your financial year or the financial year given in the question. This question is a 2017 year and it starts from 1st January, and so it has to end in December 2017, and so we don't have any issue here, and so we move on. Assuming it was different from the financial year of the question, then you would have altered it by putting in the right financial year. For example, 1st January 2017 to 31st December 2017. Then I'll hit enter. Once you've done this, we are good to go. Now before we move on, if you look at list of selected companies, under that we have date of last entry, you can see clearly that no voucher has been entered so far. Okay, so whenever you want to track the last entry that was made, you see the date right here. Okay, so now let's go to masters. Under masters we go to transactions. Under transactions you can see we have accounting vouchers. In our next case study, which is case study 2, we'll talk about inventory vouchers, but for today we are talking about accounting vouchers. What are accounting vouchers? They are purely vouchers or documents for recording transactions, and here our focus is about the money aspect of each transaction, whilst inventory vouchers will more or less focus on inventory as well as the money. Accounting voucher purely looks at the money aspect. So in our next case study, you will see how the accounting the inventory vouchers will be used, but for today our focus is on accounting vouchers. So let's go to our keyboard V, and this is how the interface of the voucher looks like. By default, payment voucher has been selected. If you look up here, it says accounting voucher creation. Okay, now if you come to your button bar, you can see we have a number of vouchers here. We have contra entry. Just a recap, contra entry is for recording contra entry transactions. That's F4. F5 is for recording all payments. F6 is for recording receipts anytime the company is receiving money. F7 basically for adjustments, okay, or movement of funds, transaction that do not involve the movement of cash or bank, even though we can adjust and bring cash later. And then sales is purely for recording sales, okay. Sales, when do we recognize sales? We recognize sales when you buy goods, okay, with the intention of selling. Anytime you sell those items that are classified as goods, it will be classified as sales. Then we have credit note. In a situation where your customer returns some of the goods, the money involved, how do you record? You use your credit note voucher to record. We also have purchase voucher for recording all purchases. So long as you are buying goods, it will be classified as purchases. You use that to record. The same vein, we have control F9, which is debit notes, and then we use that to record in a situation where you buy and you return some of the goods back to the supplier. We have reversal journal, and then we have memorandum voucher as well. We'll talk about these two in our next case study. That's case study 2. Okay, so these are the vouchers that we'll be using, and so we'll be switching between our template and then Tally to see the exact voucher type and the amount involved. In this first transaction, we are using F6. Now if you notice, each time you press on a particular voucher, the screen changes color for you to know that you have actually switched the voucher type. So we go to F6 because you are receiving money. Okay, press your back key to your date field and type your date there. Okay, now if your interface is not showing like it is here where your debit and credit are showing, just go to F12 and use single entry mode. Make sure this is activated to no, and then also you come down here where it says use credit debit instead of to and buy. Make sure this is also yes, so that you can see your debit and credit and so on. Okay, so once you do it that way, you should see it as my screen. Okay, so now we can move on. We are crediting capital. If you recall, we gave capital C, so I just type C and capital will come. Okay, so that is the beauty of the alias we gave whilst creating the ledger. Then we give it to cash. We give a narration being cash at the start of operation. Narration is very important. If you are working with Tally and you don't give a narration to a transaction, nobody will understand what you've done. So always remember to give a narration. Okay, but in an examination situation where only the report will be required, if you want to really move fast, you can skip the narration. But if you are working with Tally, narration is very important. You cannot skip that. Okay, now let's go to the second transaction, which happened on the 3rd. What happened? Deposited into Unibank 55,000. So what they are doing is the cash that they had, the 180 cash, they are taking 55,000 and they are depositing it into their Unibank account. So this is a contra entry, so we are using F4 between Unibank and then cash. Okay, so let's go to F4, click on your date. That was on the 3rd. We are crediting cash because cash is the giver here, 55,000, and then we debit Unibank because Unibank is the receiver. Then we just give a narration being transfer of cash to Unibank. Let's move on to the next transaction. Bought machine 10,000 cedis. Payment, so we debit machine, we credit cash, we are using F5. Okay, so always remember to click on the voucher type. Okay, what was the date to this transaction? That was on the 3rd again, so another 3rd transaction. Machine is an asset, so we debit it with the 10,000. We credit cash. The question was silent as to whether it was cash or bank, so or check, so we use cash. Being machine purchased. We move on to our next transaction. Purchase goods for cash. Okay, so this is between purchases and cash, and we are using F9 to record. Okay, 22,000. Now when you go to purchases and sales, their voucher is a bit different, so let's see. Now we go to purchases. Now you can see that with this it gives you the quantity, the rate, and so on, but in this particular transaction we were not told the exact quantity of items that we bought. They only told us purchased goods, so here we don't know the quantity. We are only interested in the money aspect, which is the 22,000. so when we go to tally, we need to record it as a voucher. Now when you follow the cursor to the bottom bar where we have our control V, you can see as a voucher. Click on it to show your debit and credit. So in this instance we are crediting cash because cash is paying, and then we enter 22,000 was the amount, and then purchases, we enter, we give a narration being cash purchases. Now assuming the quantities were given, we would have recorded it under invoice. Okay, but because those quantities were not given, that's how come we are creating it as a voucher where we can see our debit and credit. We do the same thing for sales also, so take note. Okay, so we move on to on the 5th transaction. Bought goods on credit from David Ventures. So we are debiting purchases, we are crediting David Venture, and we are using F9. Okay, so we are still on F9. This is on the 5th. The giver here is David Venture, Devin. 72, and then on account, just choose on account, then we type our purchases, enter, give a narration being credit purchases from David Ventures. We save, and then we move on. Cash sales 62,000. So this is a sales voucher. We debit cash, we credit sales. Okay, so click on your sales voucher. Because the quantity of items that were sold are not given, we can't record it as an invoice. We need to record it as a voucher. So go to Control V, record it as a voucher. What was the date to this transaction? Let's check the date. 8th. It was on the 8th, so we type our 8th, and then cash was received 62,000. Am I right with the figure? 62,200. Okay, so let's do the correction. 62,200. Sales, we enter being cash sales. Okay, so cash deposited into Unibank, this is a contra entry, so we debit Unibank, the credit cash, and it's a contra entry. So select your F4, always check your date. This is on the 11th. Cash is giving 23,000. Unibank being cash transfer to Unibank. Now we purchase furniture. Okay, so this is payment. Furniture is not goods, so we can't classify it as goods, but rather an asset. So we debit furniture, we credit cash. We are using F5, that's 4,000. Let me check the date again. 14th. Remember to choose the right voucher. We are making payments, so F5, and check your date. It's on the 14th. What was bought? Furniture, 4,000. Cash, so being furniture purchased. On the 16th, sold to Sandra on credit, 12,700. Okay, so we debit Sandra, we credit sales on the 16th. It was sales that we made to Sandra. We want it as a voucher because the quantity of items were not given. So Sandra, 12,700. We take on account, sales, enter, being credit sales to Sandra. Now on the next day, which is 17th, Sandra came to pay, but the emphasis is in full settlement. What it means is that Sandra was owing us 12,700, as you can see here on the 16th, but on the 17th Sandra came to pay only 12,446, and we said it's in full settlement. What it means is that there will be a discount that we are allowing to Sandra. So we'll be debiting cash, that's the exact amount that came to us, with 12,446, and then we'll be crediting Sandra 12,700, even though Sandra did not pay 12,700. The reason is the fact that it is in full settlement. So after this transaction, there shouldn't be any balance that is sitting on Sandra's account. Okay, and the difference thereon will be the discount allowed. Remember, we are receiving money from Sandra, so F6. Okay, so let's go to tally on the 17th and look at how to record this. Remember, we are using F6. Who is giving us the money? Sandra. Now as soon as you type Sandra's name, the balance left on Sandra's account will show here, that's 12,700. After this payment, Sandra shouldn't be owing, so you have to reduce all this balance. Sandra is a debtor, so debit balance. So how do we reduce this balance? We will reduce this balance by crediting it with the same amount, 12,700. As soon as you hit enter, you take on account, you can see that Sandra's balance is now 0, indicating that Sandra is no longer owing you. Then you come to debit side, you take your cash. how much cash did we actually receive from Sandra? We received 12,446. So there will still be a difference on the debit side. You can see, you know the principle, credit and debit has to agree. So the shortage here is the discount that we are giving them, which is the discount allowed, and then we give a narration being full settlement of Sandra's debt. Okay, so let's go to on the 18th. Pay David Ventures 50,000. Okay, so we debit David Venture, credit cash. We are using F5 on the 18th. Remember to select your voucher first. David Venture DV 50,000. We owe David Venture 72,000, if you can see down here, and we are paying 50,000 on account. So now the balance is 22,000. Okay, we are using cash to do this payment, being part payment. Let's do it payment rather. Payment of David Venture. Paid wages of 1,800. We debit wages, we credit cash. F5 again on the 20th. Wages was W 1,800. Cash being wages paid. Very simple. Sold goods to Susie. Now they didn't say on credit, so you can't say sales and credit are the account, but rather cash and sales. 35,000. We are using F8 to record. Select your voucher. Check the date to the transaction. This was on the 21st. Always remember that, on the 21st, but we don't want it as an invoice, so click Ctrl V and record it as a voucher. Cash was received 35,000. Sales being cash sales made to Susie. Okay. Paid trade expenses 150 cedis. So we are still making payment F5 on the 22nd. Remember to select your voucher type. Payment is being made. Trade expenses 150 and cash will be given out, being trade expenses paid. Sold goods to Roger 22,280. Sold goods to Roger on credit, so we need to debit Roger and credit sales 23,280. Let's go to our sales. Let's check the date again on 24th. Okay, so check your date 24th. Record it as a voucher because the quantities were not given. Then Roger Now if you check the ledgers, we didn't create Roger's account. Don't worry, whilst you are here, just press Alt C and go and create your Roger account. Let's call Roger R. Roger is a debtor, so sundry debtor. Okay, so once you create it, it should come now. So Roger, how much was the figure? That's 23,280. 23,280. This was credit sales that we made to Roger. Being credit sales to Roger. Now receive from Roger 21,000 cedis. Okay, here they didn't say in full settlement, so there is no discount allowed here. We'll record exactly as it was received. F6 25th 21,000. We are receiving cash from Roger. 26. Then we go to F6 26. Roger is the giver. $21,000 on account, and then cash is being received. So being cash received from Roger. And we save. Okay, now let's look at the 26th. Okay, this transaction was rather on 25th, but we made it 26th. Don't worry, after here we'll go and correct that. On the 26th, let's look at the transaction. Okay, pay David Ventures in full settlement, 20,000. Okay, so let's see what happens. David Venture is a creditor, so if we want to pay him, we will debit him. However, we were owing David Venture 22,000, but we only paid 20,000, and they said it's okay, don't pay the rest. The rest here is the 2,000 difference, and because we were the ones paying the money, it becomes an income to us, which is discount received. So let's see how we're going to record this in our system. So F5 on the 26th. We are crediting. Remember to select your voucher payment. So we are debiting David Ventures with all the amount that we owe, even though we didn't pay all the 22,000. But the reason is, after this payment there shouldn't be any balance. That's why you need to look at the balance here. David Venture is a creditor, it has a credit balance. So for you to reduce this account to zero, you have to debit it with the same amount, and that's what you are doing. Then now you ask yourself, on the credit side, how much cash did you actually pay? You didn't pay 22,000, you only paid 20,000. So type the exact amount you paid. Then the difference here will be our discount received, which has a credit balance. Okay, so being full settlement, of David Ventures debt. Okay, 28th sold goods 9,000. So we debit cash, we credit sales F8 9,000 on the 28th. So 28, we go to our sales, record it as an invoice, no, as a voucher, sorry. We debit our cash with the 9,000, credit our sales, then we give a narration being cash sales. Paid wages, sorry, stationery. We debit stationery, we credit cash, that's F5. 29th, they are making payments. 29th, stationery. How much is this figure? That's 180. So we record the 180 there. We are using cash being stationery paid. Okay. On the 30th, paid miscellaneous expense 150 cedis. Okay, on the 30th, 150 cedis miscellaneous. So 30th, 150 cedis cash being miscellaneous expenses paid. We move on to the 31st. Bought the following goods from Gideon. Now they didn't say on credit, so Gideon's account will not be open. So we debit our purchases with credit cash 17,870 F9. So we go to F9, we pick our 31st date, we record it as a voucher because the quantities were not given. We credit cash that was given out 17,870, and then purchases, let's confirm this figure, 17,870. okay, that's correct. Being cash sales made to Gideon. Okay, this is purchases, sorry. So being cash purchases from David or Gideon. Okay, so let's move on. We are almost through. We do cash for private expenses. So it is drawings and cash. We use F5. That's 1480. And money is being taken, so we use our F5 to record. Drawings 1480, we credit cash being cash withdrawn for private use. Let's confirm the figure That's 1480. Okay, so we save it. Then we go to our depreciation. Depreciation of machine is 10%. Okay, and we'll debit our depreciation account. We can either credit accumulated depreciation, or we can just credit our machine, whichever way we want. But remember, this transaction is just an adjustment, so we use F7 to record. Okay, so this is what we can do here. We can debit our depreciation account and then credit our accumulated depreciation account. Okay, so that at the end of the year, when we match our accumulated depreciation against the machine, it will reduce it. Or you can also do it this way, but for the purpose of international accounting standards, we need to create our accumulated depreciation account and give it to that account. Okay, so we'll create an accumulated depreciation account. So let's see how we'll do that. We go to F7. This is an adjustment. We are debiting depreciation. 10% of our furniture. Let's check. 10% of machine, rather. Machine was 10,000. If you go up there, you see that machine was 10,000. So 10% of 10,000 will be 1,000. Then we send it to accumulated depreciation. We don't have it, so go to Alt C and create accumulated depreciation, which will be under fixed asset. Let's call it AD, fixed asset. Okay, so then we give it, then we give a narration being depreciation of machine. Okay, then we save. We move on to our last set of transactions here. Okay, so 5% of the outstanding balance of Roger classified as bad debt, and then the balance left as discount allowed. So we are basically writing off Roger's account, but in two forms. 5% of the balance, whatever balance is left, should be written off as bad debt, and then the 95% that is left should be written off as discount allowed. So as per the balance of Roger, 5% of the total balance, which is 2,280, will be 114, which will be the 5% as bad debt, and then the 2,166 will be our 95%, which is the discount allowed. This is also an adjustment, so we use F7 to record. Okay, so let's go to Tally and record it. Now we are supposed to write off Roger's account. Assuming you are here, you want to know the balance left on Roger's account, just type Roger and hit enter. You can see that Roger's balance is now 2,280. Okay, so now that we know the amount, we can go to our calculator area, just type 2,280 there, multiply it by 0.05, which is our 5%, and it gives you the bad debt figure, 2280 times 0.95, which is the 95% also gives us the amount to be written off. Okay, so let's go back to the main area. Now what are we debiting? We are debiting bad debt. So type your bad debt and then type your figure that you calculated. Another debit again, because discount allow is also debit, so you change the credit to debit and you type your discount allow. How much are we looking at? 2166. Okay, now you are crediting all this to who? Roger, because you want to reduce Roger's account to 0. Now you can see that Roger's balance is what? 0. It means Roger no longer owes us an account, and then you give a narration being adjustment on Roger's account. So this brings us to the end of our voucher creation for case study 1. Now after you've created these vouchers, you made a mistake. How do you correct them? Okay, very simple. We've recorded all our transactions, but you realize you made a mistake with a particular transaction. How do you record and how do you correct these errors? So if you record, there was one transaction that was on the 25th, but we ended up recording it as 26. That's Roger's transaction. It was on 25th, but we recorded it as 26. So we will go back to Tally and see how to identify all the vouchers that we've recorded and what we can do if we made a mistake. So go to display and go to daybook. Now you can see only one transaction. Don't get worried. Go to your period and set your period to the period with which you recorded a transaction. We recorded transaction for January from 1st up to 31st. So the period has to be set in that order. So from 1st January 2017 to 31st January 2017. Now when you set the period right, it should bring all the vouchers that you have actually recorded. So it will arrange it in alphabetical order for us. So this is it. It has arranged everything for us, and you can basically cross check from here, compare it to the question and see whether all the vouchers have been recorded. Okay, so that is it. You can see we have 226. Okay, Roger's 26 was supposed to be 25, so I just come here, I'll change it from 26 to 25 and then I'll save it. And now when I go there to daybook, it will show as 25th. So you can see that now Roger's figure or transaction is now 25th. Okay, so basically that's how to do correction. Assuming you want to delete, once you select it like this, you press Alt D, then it gives you the option to delete. If you want to delete, it means you are removing it completely from the list of vouchers you have created. However, if you want to cancel, you use Alt S. It will still be in the system, just that it won't affect your P&L and other reports, but it will however be in the system. So you are canceling, it shouldn't affect your reports. Okay, so guys, thank you for your time. This brings us to the end of our first case study, and watch out for the subsequent case study. In the next case study, we'll look at in a situation where the quantity of items are given. How are we going to record those items? How are we going to create those items? So watch out for case study 2. Like our video, share and subscribe. Thank you.